Welcome to the AdGas channel. In this episode, we will be speaking about Abestone Hard Enduro race, round 3 of the Hard Enduro World Championship. Now, I'm by myself in the studio today, so I invited none other than James Moore to give us a rider's perspective on the race. We'll be speaking about what we expected heading into Abestone, what happened in the race, as well as where the points are heading into Hispania for round 4. We hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to the AdGas channel. My name is Taryn and I will be your host today to speak about the Abestone Hard Enduro race, round 3 of the Hard Enduro World Championship. Now, usually I have a co-host on our podcast and on our channel, Brandon, but he is not with me today, so it's just gonna be me. Brandon is currently in Inner Mongolia, launching the Say No to Slow clinic here in China. So I have been manning down the fort and following the Abestone race so I can bring some feedback and some post-race information to you. So let's get into this episode. First of all, I want to talk about what Abestone is and kind of what we were expecting heading into the race. So first things first, Abestone was round 3 of the championship taking place in Italy. Looking at the championship standings for the pro championship class, in the top 5 we had Manny, Mitch, Billy, Theodore and Wade. Now we need to keep in mind that Theodore actually injured his wrist. I think he broke his wrist in Romaniacs, so he was obviously out of this race. And it kind of opened up an opportunity for other riders like Alfredo, Mario Roman and Matthew Green to kind of move up into that 5th position spot. Looking at your junior class and the junior riders in the championship, the top 5 were Ashton Brightmore, Robert Crayston, Thomas Scales, Toby Shaw and James Moore. Now again, Ashton also out with an injury. We see that he recently had a surgery on his knee, so he's going to be recovering and looks like maybe for November or at least a 2026 season. So we can expect now new riders to move up into that first position spot after this race and some other riders to move into that top 5 position. Looking at the race schedule and what it is that we were expecting to see from the weekend, the racing was over 2 days. On Saturday, you had your qualification in the morning, which was a one-timed lap of about 7 kilometers. And then in that afternoon, you had the sprint race. This is an hour of racing on about a 5-kilometer course. Divided into categories, obviously you have your bronze, which is the easy sections, your silver, medium sections, and then gold, which is your hard sections. And then you also had an X loop, which was an additional about 30 minutes of racing on a separate loop after that 1 hour sprint race. This X loop was made up of basically 4 key challenges. You had the wall, under the wall, the slide and the last shot. Now obviously each one had its own name because it had a different kind of challenge or terrain or kind of something that riders were up against. Only the top riders, or at least the riders in the leading lap, were allowed into this X loop at the end of that sprint race on the Saturday. Not everyone could do that X loop. So riders were really pushing to be part of, you could say the front group, the leading riders, in order to get into that. Ranking was based on the laps completed and the lap times. So obviously the riders who did the X loop would then be those top however many riders, and then everyone else would kind of get filtered throughout the rest of the results. Then heading into Sunday, it's the final race day. The riders are actually on the exact same course, theoretically speaking, and they have 2 hours of racing, and then after that the leaders will then go into the X loop for about another 30 minutes of racing, and whoever crosses the finish line will be the winner of Abestone Hard Enduro. Now that's kind of what the race kind of was about. This is what we were expecting from the race. This is kind of what we went into the race looking at. But once we got into the race, obviously that's a whole different story. And in order to bring in a little bit better coverage of the race. To be honest, I'm not physically at the race, and as far as I try to get as much coverage as possible. And this is a really good opportunity for me to, number one, send a big thank you to Rutherford Racing. Their team has been on the ground. They've been our eyes and kind of giving us updates and really good video content from the weekend. If you've been following our Instagram, we've been making some reels. So a big shout out to Rutherford Racing for supporting us here at the Add Gas channel. And it's just really cool to have people in our community who support each other and kind of are working together for the greater cause of really growing hard enduro. Now, to talk about the actual race, I thought what better than, instead of you listening to me talk about everything for a good 20 minutes, why not invite someone who's actually at the race? Maybe a rider, maybe someone who had a standout performance at this race specifically. I decided to call in some reinforcements, and so we will now be heading into a short and sweet and pretty much to the point review of the race and reflections from none other than James Moore. He did a fantastic job in this race, and he was the perfect person to give us a bit of insight into what the race was about from a rider's perspective. So let's get into that. James, welcome to the podcast. We are very excited to have you here joining us today and to give us a bit of a rider's perspective on Abestone, and from someone who was in the race. You could say that you are kind of the man of the hour at the moment. A lot of people are speaking about your performance at the race, and firstly, I just want to congratulate you. A really solid performance. I mean, 4th overall and 1st as a junior. You know, this is, you could say, almost a home race for you.
Yeah, for sure. It was a really good race. Obviously, I'm very proud of my result, and yeah, to be in the home country of our team is very special, and I'm glad I could do a good job for them.
That's so cool to be able to perform like that, you know, in front of, you could say, like a home crowd, right?
Home crowd for sure. They were cheering for us. You could definitely notice it and feel them behind me. So yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people make comments about how the spectators and the crowd were really, like, they pulled out all of the stops at this race. So that's really cool to hear. So I want to speak about the pre-race, actually. Starting off before the race even started, I saw a lot of riders like walking the track before the race. This is not something that we usually see before a race. Is this something that kind of happened, and what did you guys think about being able to kind of find, I guess, good lines before the race?
Yeah, so we started walking on the Thursday, so 2 days before the race. Yeah, walking, the idea is just to get an idea of the track, get your lines, and yeah, so that you sort of know where you're going and know what to do, when to do it, and to see passing opportunities, and yeah, always looking for more than one line for passing. And yeah, it's not something that we usually do, and something that I really enjoy doing. I don't love the walk, but yeah, it's part of it. Yeah, you just get an idea of the track, and so you can ride faster pretty much. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I didn't think about it from that perspective of, like, I thought it would just be getting, you know, solid lines, but I guess you made a good point that it's also about passing riders, right? Because it was a loop, so you did have to find opportunities to pass other riders in order to, you know, progress.
Yeah, we're always looking for more than one line. There's a lot of back markers in this race, so we have to find more than one line, and sometimes both the lines are blocked, so you
I
don't always
see.
get lucky, but you have to try and know the track as well as possible, and if you can pass.
Yeah, of course. And did you guys also get to train before? I don't know if it was on the track itself or in like a separate section.
Yeah, we got to ride a very short section of the track. It's not a very hard section, but then we also went out of the track and into some rock sections to get a bit of a feel for the terrain, get the bike set up dialed. Yeah, definitely helped.
Yeah, and that section, was it actually similar to what you had in the race? Like, did it give you a good idea of what to expect?
Yeah, for the practice section, we basically got a big rock garden pretty much to ride in, and it probably helped most for the one section, Minestrone. It was pretty much identical, same rocks, same sort of traction. So we got to, feel what the bike was doing and also make changes to obviously race the best you can.
I see. And another thing, a thing about that, right, is that you're not just riding by yourself. You're not just walking the track by yourself. You actually get to kind of do this with other riders. And I know that, you know, from my understanding is that at a lot of races, riders don't really have the opportunity to hang out so much. You don't really get time to spend with other riders and spend it together. You're normally kind of in your own pits, kind of worried about your own race. So I can imagine it was pretty cool to be able to kind of be out on track with other riders and kind of get a feel of where everyone's at.
Yeah, for sure. You also get a lot of ideas from the other riders. You don't always see all the lines. So, I walk the track with Matt Green and Tom Scales. And I guess we don't always spend much time together. I mean, I'm with Matt in our pits, but it's nice to be with Tom, and also you see the other riders out on track and get an idea of what they think of the track, and it's nice to socialize. It's a fun part of the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool to like connect with other riders. So heading into like actual racing, so obviously everything started on Saturday, and in the morning you had your qualifying. It was a one-time lap of about 7 kilometers. Was this separate from the sprint race track?
Yeah, it was a completely different track. We had the bronze sections were pretty similar to the Saturday and Sunday races for them, of our qualifying track. So the qualifying track was pretty fast, and was, I think, the bronze track, pretty much the whole bronze track. Fast. We also walked that, so it was a bit more walking. Fast, not so much tech, and but it was important to get right for sure.
Yeah, of course. I mean, depending on the rider, we saw between, I think, 12 and a half and like 15 minutes for that timed run. So, you know, we could see that, you know, riders were kind of pushing. The times were quite close between, you know, the top guys, but you coming, you know, third on that qualifying, a pretty solid run. When you were doing the run, did it feel like a good run? Did it feel like, okay, that was like a solid attempt? Because obviously you only had one attempt, right?
Yeah, only one run, so you really have to get it perfect. To be honest, when I did the run, I didn't think I was going to be high up. I thought maybe between 5th and 10th. I really didn't expect the 3rd place. I knew I was riding well because I passed the 2 riders ahead of me. So I knew I didn't have a bad run, but I didn't expect it to be that good.
I can imagine a nice surprise to look at those results and be like, oh, look, not so bad.
Yeah, it was cool, yeah.
And then in the afternoon, you obviously had the sprint race, a 1 hour race of about a 5 kilometer loop. And I know that there were about 5 different sections within that loop. So I know things like there's the bridge, Minestrone, Inferno, things like that. Which one of those would you say was the toughest or like the trickiest section out of that sprint race?
I would say the trickiest section was probably the ram line, which sort of had this fence on the ground, and you really had to get it right. And if you didn't get it right, you had to go back down and try again. So it definitely was I would say, a make or break section. You had to get it right to ride fast up it. But in terms of physically, I would say Minestrone was the hardest. You have to use quite a lot of energy in there, and to not make mistakes as well. And also there were a lot of riders, so in that section, so passing people, you had to find new lines, and sometimes you would waste energy to find those lines. But it's probably I'd say physically definitely the hardest, and then technically was the ram line.
Yeah, that ram line looked pretty intense. We saw like a couple of videos of that, of riders trying to get up in one run, and obviously a lot of riders making it about halfway, turning around and trying to attempt like a better, more solid run at that.
Yeah, for sure. On the Saturday, it was really technical. There was only two lines that you could get to pretty much. No one hit the straight line. So there were two lines, and then on the Sunday, they made it a bit better. They made the lines they like wedged them out. So there was a bit of a ledge. So it was a bit better on the Sunday to keep it flowing.
Yeah. And then obviously after that hour of racing, only the top riders in like the leading lap were allowed into that X loop, right? And I think, only having 6 riders, what did you think when you made it into that section? I mean, is it very different, the X loop? I mean, technically, is it more technical? Is it more difficult? Is it more intense? Or was it quite similar to what you're already racing, but just like an extra loop or addition?
It was much shorter. I'd say the tech was much shorter, so it was not these big hills. It was shorter, still steep and still very technical, but it was much shorter and sort of in your face, one after the other. There was about 5 sections, I would say, in the X loop, and you had to get everyone right. You couldn't really half job it and sort of make a plan to get out of it. You had to ride it pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. It did look like quite draining. It looked like quite intense. As you said, it's just kind of go, go, go when you get into that final X loop. It's not just, a continuation of the sprint race, right?
Yeah, no. It was, you definitely could lose a lot of energy there. I was quite lucky. I had no one behind me really chasing me, so I had a little bit of less pressure, but I was trying to catch Alfredo. So yeah, you had to get everything right, and to be fast in that is a very trialsy section, so you have to have your technique pretty much down.
That's a really interesting point that you made, like a very trialsy section. I mean, obviously Alfredo is really good on a trials bike, and so is Mario. I think Billy's got a lot. I mean, most of those top guys, actually all of you guys, have a lot of trials experience, so it kind of shows where trials is quite important, and having those technical skills is important when it comes to certain sections in hard enduro, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely important. I don't come from trials very much, but I have
seen
trying to ride a lot
riding
more.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been trying to ride a lot more, especially in the last 2 years. Definitely helps a lot. I can see for sure a step change in my riding from it. And yeah, in South Africa we try to ride it at least twice a week. So yeah, to try catch up for what we've missed, pretty much.
The years of trials experience of the other guys.
Yeah, the years.
Absolutely. So at the end of that day, you basically then sitting in 6th position behind Billy, Manny, Mario, Mitch, and Alfredo, right?
Yeah.
So then, I want to have a question with regards to points, just to clarify. So did you actually get any points for that qualifying run on the Saturday morning, or was the sprint race on the Saturday kind of the first race that qualified for those first 3 points for the championship?
Yeah, so the morning, the time trial run, the prologue run, was just for starting position for the race on Saturday afternoon. And then on Saturday afternoon, we got the points for the championship.
All right, I see. So it definitely is important then for that sprint race to have gone well, and for riders to have tried to have done as well as they could, because obviously after that you only have the main race and there only are 3 points up for grabs, right?
Yeah, so there's 3 points for first, second and third, and both the senior and the junior. So for sure the guys are pushing to get those points for the seniors, especially. The pace is definitely hot.
I can understand that. So then that's basically Saturday done, and then you're heading into main race day on Sunday. What were your thoughts heading into Sunday?
Yeah, so Sunday I was in 6th position. I knew that I was riding well and that I could keep up with the front guys. And I was sort of trying to keep the juniors out of my head a bit, because I was coming from quite far back in the championship. So I just wanted to keep it out of my head and ride my best race in the seniors and not have to worry about extra things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just trying to keep my head clear, try to ride smooth as possible, obviously try and make no mistakes. And yeah, I would like to say I did a pretty good job of no mistakes.
Yeah. And obviously Sunday, the main race was 2 hours. So it's an extra hour compared to the Saturday. Other than the time, was there anything else that was really like different about that day? You mentioned before that the track organizers or the race organizers, they made some changes to the track. Anything other than that hill climb?
Yes, so they made quite a few changes actually. They so they made the two lines better on the ram line, and then up Inferno, the river section, they made an extra line in the one section that was bottlenecking a bit, where there was lots of back markers. So they made an extra line so that we could get past a bit easier. And then Minestrone was the same, and they took one line out of the bridge section, so you couldn't. They basically made the bridge sections a bit harder, so you had to go up
Okay.
the waterfall. Um, yeah, it was definitely the fastest line, but not everyone was hitting it on the Saturday.
Interesting. So, would you say that the organizers of the event and maybe even just the championship promoters, do you think that those changes that they made on the Sunday was, based off of listening to what the riders were saying, some feedback from, the Saturday, and then also just them kind of seeing where potential issues were?
Yeah, no, they definitely took some rider feedback. We I remember chatting to Mario and Alfredo at the finish with Michele and saying that these sections need to be need to change a bit so that it flows a bit easier and the racing is better,
Yeah.
because you don't really want back markers to affect the racing in the front. If that
Yes.
makes sense. So yeah, they definitely made some good changes and made it so everything flowed better, and yeah, it was a better race.
Fantastic. That's really cool to hear, and I'm glad to see or to hear that organizers are really taking the initiative to listen to riders and really like elevate the racing experience for the riders. So before I wrap up, this is basically a solid result for you, 4th overall on that main race, and then 1st in the juniors. This will definitely bump you up a little bit with regards to points. I know that the official championship points haven't been updated just yet, so we're not sure. I would have to do the math, but I have not yet done the math to figure out where everyone stands in the championship. But I can imagine that these are some really valuable points for you in that junior championship, and hopefully will move up, because obviously Ashton now is out of the championship. So, are you feeling pretty positive heading into the next race, taking kind of the momentum from this round 3?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was a big confidence booster to be 4th. Is a really big confidence booster going to the next rounds. And yeah, like you said, Ashton is unfortunately injured. Yeah, so the junior championship is open. And if my math is correct, I'm leading the championship. So it's
Ooh,
definitely
that's
a
exciting.
confidence booster. Yeah, very exciting, and a confidence booster going to the next round. And yeah, still got two more races in the juniors and
Yeah.
a few more rounds in the seniors. So yeah, it's not over, and yeah, the long season ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. We pretty much, you could say, close to halfway through the season, so definitely a lot of racing still to come. But I think that pretty much brings this wrap up and this interview about Abestone to an end. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and just give me some feedback about the race from a rider's perspective. Once again, big congratulations and good luck for Hispania. I know it's only about a week and a half away.
Yeah, very excited for Xpania. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, excited for Xpania.
So cool to have James join us on the podcast and to give us a bit of a reflection of racing from the weekend. Now I will kind of add in a little bit extra into that and some things that I know from the race weekend. So first of all, I want to speak about the sprint race. Obviously, mistakes were made by a lot of riders in that sprint race. We had Robert Crayston taking a bit of a tumble. I know that he hurt his stomach quite hard, or he hit it quite hard, and he was kind of sick on the track. But Sunday, he was feeling a lot better. You also had Mitch Brightmore fall over and have the bike actually end up on top of him in that sprint race on the Saturday. Obviously not ideal, a technical situation to be in. He actually needed the bike to be lifted off of him in that scenario. So again, a bit of a mistake that's not ideal heading into, your main race day. Also, we saw Manny falling over. I saw some videos on social media. Manny falling over in some of the rock sections. So definitely a challenging race, definitely a challenging track, not only for the X Loop, but also just the track in general. A lot of riders making a lot of mistakes, falling over. So this is something that we saw from, a lot of the riders. And so I think heading into Sunday, a lot of riders obviously ideally wanted to improve their performance and have better racing days on the Sunday. If you are looking at results, we actually see that for the qualifying, the first three or the top three was Billy Bolt, Manuel Littenbichler, and James Moore. James had a really solid result for that qualification race. Then heading into the afternoon, only 6 riders actually made it into that final X Loop. You had Billy Bolt, Manuel Littenbichler, Mitch Brightmore. You had Mauro Roman, Alfredo Gomez, and James Moore topping out that top 6. Obviously, heading into Sunday, things looked quite different for that main race and when it came to the results as well. I think when you look at the main race day, the first thing you'll notice is that there was no Mario. Well, there was, but there wasn't. Mario started the race pretty strong, but had some electrical issues which prevented him from actually progressing the way that he would have wanted. He came in third the day before as the third, pro championship rider and had a really solid race start or event start, and I think he really wanted to continue that momentum onto main race day, but because of these electrical issues he tried to fix the bike to manage that, but it got to a point where it was not really fixable anymore. So definitely an unfortunate turn of events. Then we have also Alfredo Gomez. We have some videos of him having some clutch problems and actually I think changing his clutch oil, if I'm not mistaken, which, to be honest, where did he get that oil from? Like, where did that even, was he hiding that in his bike? Was it just strategically left next to him on a rock? Who knows? But definitely not an ideal situation to be in and having to handle, fixing that on the track. I think he also caused a little bit of a backlog there with riders trying to get around him. Seemed like he didn't care too much, though he was just racing his own race. So that was super interesting. And then looking at the finish. Obviously, our winner was Billy Bolt, and in second place, we had Manny. These were the only 2 riders that actually made it into that X Loop on the final race day. So as you can imagine, some spectators probably, I think, paid to have access to that X Loop and to watch those pro riders. And for only 2 pro riders to actually make it into that X Loop was definitely, I think, disappointing. I heard that a lot of spectators were hoping for more action in that X Loop on that final day, which I understand, but that's racing. It's just how it is. Different riders do differently. They do well on different days and in different circumstances, so that's an unfortunate situation, but clearly shows that the track was pretty challenging and tiring, especially after 2 hours of racing before heading into that X Loop. Then obviously we know that it was a super close race between Manny and Billy. The 2 were neck and neck really the whole weekend, but also coming across that finish, Manny was right behind Billy across that finish. So, Billy coming back, he takes the win. I think you could see that he was more confident in this race, especially after what he did at Romania. He had such a good race and probably carried through that momentum and confidence into this event, knowing he could keep up with Manny, and not only keep up, but actually dominate and come first in this race, which is really cool. And I think it's cool to have Billy competing against Manny, or at least to have someone competing against Manny. I think that Manny is such a great rider, and we want to see competition at that level. This is not about, oh, we want to see someone beat Manny. This is about us wanting to see competition in the sport, riders pushing each other. It's exciting for the sport to see new riders coming up and more competition. So I think that is awesome, and awesome outcome for the event and for the race. Manny had a very strange finish, I'll be honest. I don't think everyone saw it, but definitely on social media there was a video of him kind of, when he got across the finish line, he was shouting and screaming and pulling off like his camel pack and his shirt, and I think he's like protective chest protector. So definitely an interesting finish. He looked like he was definitely in pain. I thought maybe he was stung by something. Other people are speculating that maybe there was fuel involved. I'm not sure. It's not confirmed. We tried to reach out, but we didn't get a response. But definitely a weird finish. Not the exciting finish we were expecting from Manny, that's for sure. I think over the whole weekend, I would say personally that I don't feel like Manny was necessarily racing on top form. I think that we saw quite a few mistakes from him, not clearing obstacles, at least as clean as what we would normally see. It's what, we know Manny to do. I kind of feel like this weekend, his racing was a little bit off. Having said that though, for him to be having an off day or an off race and still to be at the top, coming in second, being consistent, that is pretty cool, and it shows that he really is like on top of his game. Another thing I want to make note of is that this year the track was actually shorter. This was to accommodate, I think, for people who are looking to protect land and protect the environment. So the track was shorter, but some could say on one hand it's a disadvantage to the riders or not as ideal, but on the other hand I think it almost made for a more challenging and difficult course, and that the race organizers were able to create a pretty solid track that definitely challenged riders. The last thing I want to mention before we end this episode is Will Royden. He is an Australian rider who normally participates in the US Hard Enduro series, and we saw him at Abestone this weekend with Sherco Factory Racing, mostly because he filled in for Theodor Kabachiev, who obviously is injured. I think it's so cool to see what Sherco is doing, opening up that opportunity and that spare bike, really, for someone who is an extended part of their team. Still in Hard Enduro, even though racing in a different part of the world, I think it's so cool to see how they are expanding those opportunities to riders, and I think that he will be at Hispania in the next round. We could compare this to what we saw last year with KTM, and when Manny had injured himself, there was the opportunity for someone else to be invited to the X-Ross race. We mentioned this in the podcast before about how it would be cool to give even a young rider that opportunity, and for KTM really just to be seen at the race, just to kind of represent. That did not happen, which was disappointing, but I think seeing this opportunity come up with Sherco and for them to take it and to give someone that opportunity, I just want to say that I think that that's really cool. So that pretty much sums up what happened at Abestone this weekend. I want to actually just speak about the final results. Now, championship results specifically. Now, if you look on the website as of today, which for me is Tuesday, the championship results have not yet been updated, which meant that I had to do a bit of math to figure out where everyone is standing. And believe me, I'm not a fan of math, so it would have been great if those results were up, but they weren't. So this is kind of what we're looking at with regards to championship standings heading into Hispania in about 2 weeks from now. In our pro championship class, in first we still have Manny on 83 points. In second we have Billy on about 66 points. There's still about 17 points difference between Billy and Manny. So I don't know if this means that Billy can catch up. You know, we're not even halfway through the season yet, so there's definitely opportunity and time, but it'll be interesting to see. It's a pretty big gap that he's got at the moment. In third, we have Mitch Brightmore with about 61 points. In fourth, we have Wade with about 50 points. And believe it or not, it seems like Theodore is actually still in fifth position because he had such good results in the previous races. He's sitting on about 39 points. So this is estimated based off of my math who the top 5 will be heading into Hispania in the pro class. And then in the junior class, in first, we currently have none other than James Moore. He is now sitting about 34 points in first position. In second, we have Bert Crayson in 30 points. In third, we are sitting with Felix Barker, who has really come up in that junior championship standings, about 29 points. Fourth, we have Thomas Scales, 27 points. And fifth, Toby Shaw on about 23 points. Again, this is my math, my general estimate of how results theoretically should be working out. And it's going to be super interesting looking at Hispania and watching that race and seeing how things progress with these championship standings. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much if you made it all the way to the end. And hopefully next time Brandon will be able to join me for a chat about racing. Until then, don't forget to add gas.